Hello everybody, welcome to another review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the brand new album by Turnstile. This is Never Enough. So Turnstile, after following their 2021 magnum opus, their big grand entry into a more mainstream setting in the hardcore punk scene, Never Enough is kind of this follow-on, taking a lot of the hype the band had from that point on and bringing it to something brand new. Glow On, in my opinion, is a fantastic record, start to finish. It has a lot of fun riffs, a lot of fun grooves, a lot of fun energy, and I feel like the refrains on these as well were just downright solid. Never Enough kind of wants to be a softer, more indie, synthy version of what Glow On was, and I don't think that's necessarily too bad. It's obvious that if the band's going to get a lot of exposure and popularity from a certain album, the first thing they want to think about is, how could we continue this on? It doesn't feel like the band wants to just do Glow On, isolate themselves from it, and just do something brand new, while instead it's more of a profitable idea to take elements of what Glow On had and replicate it again into Never Enough. So that's pretty much what they did here. Now, Never Enough does feel like it could be Glow On the sequel, as there is a lot of songs that do share the hardcore punk sound, but they definitely tone this one back a lot more to focus on a softer, just kind of more experimental piece to it. This album you could actually listen to or witness this in cinemas and theatres, as they did show a showing, which I thought was pretty cool. If you managed to see that, you get to see the whole album, listen to it, and see it as kind of a cinematic piece. And I think that generally would have been the best way to witness it, rather than just listen to it as an album. The album generally is, what I'm going to say, is a pretty damn good record, but a lot of the ideas that they put onto the record probably fit better just watching it as a kind of standalone movie, rather than witness it as an album. For example, synths is a huge part of this record, and there's not a problem with using synths. There's a few synths in Glow On, for example. Some of the songs on that record even start off with it, like Mystery, and there's not a problem using synths to kind of create a tone to then push into the hardcore punk. But the biggest issue I have with Never Enough is how half the songs either start or end with synths, and some of them just feel like they just go on for ages and don't need to be there. That's kind of my gripe with the lead single, Never Enough. I like this track for what it had, the kind of more shoegazy, slower indie sound of it, and I like the way that they kind of build up the energy to it. I enjoyed the bass song itself, but the long outro just felt exaggerated, especially since the fact that once you get to the end of it, you start to hear drumming, and then that's it. For a lead single, that's kind of a punch in the gut, because you're hyped up for what's coming, but you're not gonna actually experience it. If they released the second single attached to Never Enough, and it was the song after, then I think that would have been a lot better than just kind of having Never Enough and then just have some other singles on the record. Soul was the follow-up track, and this one definitely pushes a lot more of the classic Turnstile Glow On's formula. It takes the hardcore punk that record has and pretty much throws it in there. Sure, some of it is a bit more tame in comparison, but they still keep the hardcore punk to an extent. It's just dialed back to put more of the synthwave into it, and it does give us a lot of experimentation and a lot of new, freshing ideas, because trust me, if this album was just entirely just to try and replicate Glow On again, it would generally feel boring. So at least I appreciate them trying to mix it up. Soul, in my opinion, is a very good song to follow, Never Enough, and I feel like once you get kind of past this long kind of drawn out synth that comes throughout the second half of the song that ties into the next track, this is where the album really just fully drives into its best ideas. I Care is the next song. I love this one. It's a bit softer, but the melody is just really cool. I like the whole aesthetic to this track. It's generally a beautifully well written song, and generally one of my favourites from Turnstile in general. I've said general and generally quite a lot, but I Care, it is a pretty good song, I will say on that. Dreaming is kind of a nice vibe. It has this kind of, again, classic Turnstile energy. It doesn't really overdo the synths as much. It does have a bit, but then again, almost all the songs do here. Then we have Light Design. This one's kind of a shorter, simpler song. It focuses more on just being this ethereal, light hitting song, and it's good. I'm not big on it, I just think it's nice that it's there. Then it goes into Dole. This one gonna have some weird sounds, especially towards the end and in between the song, but Dole's energy's great. It generally has this fun aesthetic to it, and it kind of really brings me to that point thinking, Glow On is good, and I'm really happy that this album is hitting me in a similar way that album did. Then Sun Shower, this one's fun, but I did find the outro just to kind of take me away from it a bit. A lot of the song is the outro, and it is kind of annoying when that's the case, because that happens in the next song, Look Out For Me. Now this was one of the singles, and the bass song itself is great. I appreciate some of the songs kind of building up with this outro, using the synths, but it just kind of feels like you've heard this a bunch by now. I mean, Never Enough does this, Sun Shower does this. It's pretty much 3 or 4 times you've heard the synth outro, and it kind of feels like they're trying to brand Turnstile to being this more synth, indie, hardcore punk blend, just because it's more mainstreamable. But I feel like they took the one instance of Glow On that kind of didn't need to exist and popularized it mainly, and that's kind of my issue with how ridiculous the synths can get on it. But Look Out For Me, I still like the song. Got some really fun aesthetic to it. I generally like the energy as well. I feel like they keep the energy of Glow On not quite as heavy, but the only issue that drowns it out and brings it down a bit is the synths. This one is 6 minutes, and that's because most of the song is this synth, and at least when it builds up you do kind of get something out of it. But again, it's just a long time on dragging this song out, and I don't think it needs to exist that way. Ceiling is a pretty short song. It's not really much to think about. It's just kind of a transition from the Look Out For Me build up, and I don't think it quite necessarily does much with it. You have this long pulsing build up and you think something's coming, but it's just another soft song to fill out between that to then Seeing Stars. Seeing Stars is generally one of my favourite songs from Turnstile. It has this 80s synth wave sound that I could see bands like Duran Duran going for. I love it. It's got this dancey disco aesthetic, and it doesn't overuse the synths for an intro and outro. It just goes straight into the rhythm and the groove, and I kind of wish more songs just utilise this formula. Seeing Stars is generally an improvement upon Never Enough as a single, and I kind of wish that Seeing Stars was the lead single. That would have definitely hyped me up more. They're releasing Stars with the next song, Birds, which I don't think these ones transition as much as Never Enough to Soul, so I feel like that would have made more sense. But Birds, I'm not complaining, because Seeing Stars is great, and then Birds is just one of my personal favourite songs from them. It takes a minute to build into this sound, but then it just brings in this upbeat, fun energy, and then you just get this awesome guitar that's generally one of my favourite moments from Turnstile, and I just love the way that the song continues. It is just insane. It's not that long of a song, but Birds is just perfect in my opinion. Then you get Slow Dive, another absolute amazing song, one of the heaviest songs I think Turnstile's ever put out, and it is a lovely follow-on from Birds. Then Time Is Happening is kind of just it is good, but I'm not as big on it as a lot of the other songs. It's just kind of there. And then Magic Man is this more emotional, sort of gets ballady sort of song. It just keeps to this kind of more sorrow, soft sound. It doesn't really build up anywhere. It just kind of lays into the whole softer aesthetic of the record, while they do push out some of their heavier energy. Now, that's pretty much all the 14 tracks talked about, but Never Enough, I think the issue I have with it is that Glow On just is a lot more flashy with what Turnstile wants to represent, and Never Enough kind of feels like it wants to replicate it in a way that is good, but some of the songs do feel like they are B-sides to Glow On, and also they utilise the synths way too much. The indie sound's not too bad in my opinion. I feel like if they wanted to go this direction, then I'm all for it, to be honest. I do think it works quite well in their sound. The hardcore punk is quite limited, but you still get the Turnstile energy you're looking for. I think it is generally a fantastic record still in its own way, but it generally has its own faults you can see. I feel like they didn't need to have as many synths. They could trim a bunch of it, and I don't think the quality of the record would necessarily be diminished. I generally need to stop saying that. I do sincerely think that this album has a lot of great potential, and as a follow-up, it's not quite as good as Glow On, but I still think it is a fantastic album to follow with, and I generally want to see where the band goes from here. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say with this. I think it's a 4 out of 5. I do like the album, but with all the synths, I feel like the band thought it was never enough, and they had to put more and more on there. But that's pretty much it. So I hope you enjoy. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.